Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, Text 3. Kridayam Udyamon Basya Kamachikridi Sanyata Svatatriptasya Chakatam Nivritasya Saranyata Kridayam Udyamon Basya Kamachikridi Sanyata Svatatriptasya Chakatam Nivritasya Saranyata. Plain. Udyama, enthusiasm. Arbasya, of the boys. Karma, desire. Chikridisha, willingness. Willingness to play. Anyata, with other boys. Svata triptasya, for one who is self-satisfied. Cha, also. Katam, what for? Nivritasya, one who is detached. Sada, at all times. Anyata, otherwise. Translation. Boys are enthusiastic to play with other boys or with various diversions because they are encouraged by desire. But there is no possibility of such a desire for the Lord because he is self-satisfied and detached from everything at all times. Purport. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is one without a second, there is no possibility that anything besides him can exist. He expands himself by his energies in multi-forms or self-expansions and separated expansions as well, just as fire expands itself by heat and light. Since there is no other existence besides the Lord himself, the Lord's association with anything manifests his association with himself. In Bhagavad Gita 9.4, the Lord says, Maya tatam vidam sarvam jagdya vyakta murtina matstani savabhutani nachaham tveshvabhashtita. The complete manifestation of the cosmic situation is an expansion of the Lord himself in his impersonal feature. All things are situated in him only, yet he is not in them. That is the opulence of the Lord's attachment and detachment. He is attached to everything, yet he is detached from all. Hare Krishna. So, Kridayam Udyamo Basya Kamas Chikri Dishanyata Svaras Tiptasya Chakatam Nivritasya Sadanyata. Boys are enthusiastic to play with other boys or with various diversions because they are encouraged by desire. But there is no possibility of such desire for the Lord because he is self-satisfied and detached from everything at all times. Prabhupada, in his purport, this is more or less very a basic Vaishnava philosophy. Of course, those who are not devotees would have a very difficult time understanding these points are made here in the verse itself and also the explanation given by Srila Prabhupada. Even devotees, the devotee, as the previous verses Prabhupada was mentioning, that the devotee himself does not envisage ever fully understanding the personality of Godhead. But the devotee is always desiring to be fully engaged in the Lord's service by his mercy. So this is the attitude of the devotee. So even the devotees, and there's all different levels of devotees, do not understand completely the inconceivable pastimes of the Lord. So those who are not devotees, very, very difficult. But here Prabhupada explains the position of Krishna very nicely in as far as his Atmarama, his satisfaction. his attachment and detachment simultaneously. This is very contradictory in one sense, that someone can be attached and detached at the same time, and have personality and be impersonal at the same time. It's a very contradictory term. You're personal and impersonal, but the Lord is inconceivably so. And there is nothing that the Lord needs to do to be satisfied. And very interesting, as I said, Prabhupada gives a very nice logic to this, in that, first of all, Krishna is one without a second. You can understand that on many levels. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna and Krishna Loka, he has qualities over and above his expansions, and even Lord Balaram, and even the Vishnu expansions, what to speak of the incarnations and so on and so forth. So he is one without a second on that level. And as far as he's all-pervasive, his personality being inconceivable and spreading everywhere in so many ways, his energy spread everywhere. So there is none that can equal him. There's no one who can compare to that. And on another level, Krishna is fully satisfied because there's nothing in existence except himself. This is a very interesting point that Prabhupada emphasizes on it. He is one without a second. There's no possibility that anything besides him can exist. Everything is him. We are him. And here, multi-forms of self-expansions and separated expansions. A very interesting point. We know there's the different types of energies: Antaranga Shakti, Bahyanga Shakti, Tatastha Shakti. These are the basic categories. This is a very this is the Vaishnava basic understanding. Internal energy, external energy, and Tatastha marginal energy, the living entities. And besides, on the internal energy side of things, the Lord is one. Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam Eko Bohanam Yovididhatikaman. He is that one single who expands himself into so many others, but he is maintaining all the others, and the others are nothing but himself. So when he's having, in one sense, when he's having his leelas and activities, he's enjoying nothing but himself. Even we are he. Very interesting. Papa, the way he explains this, we are he and he is us and us are and him. But at the same time, we are different. So this is the Chincha Beta Tattva philosophy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You can understand why someone might come to the impersonal conclusion that we are all God. We are all one. We are all on that supreme level. Because there's nothing in existence. Everyone follows my path in all respects. Of course, this is the levels of transcendence, but in one sense that anything in existence is Krishna. The Brahman is Krishna. The Prakriti is Krishna. The living entities, they're all Krishna. They expanded from Krishna. There are different types of expansion. We have to, now, as I said, one could understand why one could come to the conclusion, well, if everything is Krishna and we are all Krishna, we are all one, we are all supreme. We are all Krishna, so we are all the God. Don't look for God anywhere else. You are God, she is God, he is God, everyone is God. So in that sense, when it's explained in this way, there is nothing but Krishna everywhere. So what is left for him to seek to be satisfied? And as explained, we were, I think in Krishna Rupa's class here, someone asked a question about, it was Vinod. Vinod asked a question about, there was some mention in the verse about, what was that about? how Krishna knows, but then again he doesn't know. He knows all, but then again sometimes he doesn't know. And this is explained that his energies are inconceivably increasing unlimitedly, and the opulences and the potencies are always increasing. There's no static point to Krishna. There's no one point that is the actual. It's always increasing. The pastimes, the opulences, the qualities, the energies, they're always increasing, and the knowledge energy is catching up to the other energies, and it's going like that. So he's knowable, he knows all, but then at the same time he doesn't know all because it's ever increasing, and the knowledge potency has to also increase to know all things. Understand? So he knows everything, but simultaneously he doesn't know everything. But then again, at the next moment, he can know everything. So this was a question Vinod asked, and this was one of the explanations given, that this is Krishna's position. So there is nothing for him that when there are the living entities, we are Krishna in one sense because we're expanded from Krishna. So even in his relationship to the living entities, on whatever level the living entities are on, Krishna is just enjoying himself through the living entities. But there's nothing but Krishna. So this is the point that Prabhupada makes here, and he says it very strongly. The Lord's association with anything manifests his association with himself. He's just associating with himself. There's nothing else for him to associate with because everything is him. So therefore, going back to the point of self-satisfied, ordinary living entity, now the living entity is Krishna, but it's a type of energy that's separated, and Prabhupada explains this. There's self-expansions in the internal energy. There's self-expansions. Now the immediate self-expansion of Krishna is Balaram, and then on the other side there's Radha. So these are self-expansions. They're on what's called the Vishnu Tattva. They're on the Godhead platform. These types of expansions have unlimited potencies. They're on the Godhead platform. Now there are other types of expansions, what's called separated expansions. They're on the Jiva Tattva level. They're not Vishnu Tattva, they're Jiva Tattva. But all, whether they're self-expansions, incarnations, expansions of expansions, incarnations, or separated expansions, all is nothing but Krishna. Everything is Krishna. The Brahman is Krishna. This is very interesting. He is everything. And actually in Bhagavad Gita, in the 15th chapter, and as in other chapters, he says that in many places, Yada Ditya Gatam Tejo, said the splendor of the sun, for example, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me. The splendor of the moon, the splendor of fire, also from me. I entered the planet. By my energy, they stay in orbit. I become the moon. I'm the fire of digestion in all the living entities, in the bodies of all living entities. I am the life air, and so on and so forth. Krishna just, and then of course from me comes the remembrance. The living entities can have remembrance, and they can have forgetfulness. So, for example, the separated energies of Krishna who are in this world, because they have a separate desire. And so Krishna gives them forgetfulness. That's their desire, is to be separated. So if one is with Krishna, how can you forget Krishna? It's impossible, unless Krishna arranges that you forget him, because you want to forget him. So then Krishna creates an artificial situation, in one sense artificial to the natural position of the living entity, and then you forget him. So that forgetfulness, Savasa Chamriti Shanavishto, Matashmiti Jnana Aponamja. Aponamja means then Krishna gives you forgetfulness. You want to forget Krishna? He gives it to you. All right, you can forget me. But actually he's right there next to you. He's right next to you, but you don't see him. You're forgetful, although he goes everywhere with you. Just imagine if a friend of yours went everywhere with you, but you don't even know he exists. Everywhere you go, that friend is there. But you don't know. So that's an inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of God, that he can do that. And we want to be imitation Krishnas, so he arranges where we think we're acting out in that way, although it's impossible because we can never be the absolute position of Krishna. So this is all Vaishnava philosophy, and it's, as I said, for non-devotees, very, very difficult to understand these types of things. Very, very difficult. And so so ordinary living entities who are in the category of separated energy, living entity, small particles of the supreme whole, they are forgetful. And therefore, when they are forgetful, when they're disassociated from Krishna, they are always in want. They are always in need. So therefore, even the example that is given here, that boys desire to play with one another and engage in different activities, and they're always looking for different things all the time, that's a pushing of need, because we've decided to become disconnected for Krishna. When we're with Krishna, that is our full satisfaction. But when we're disconnected, there's always a dissatisfaction. There's always a need and desire to be satisfied, because we've disconnected, just like a fish out of water. A fish out of water can flap around, but it actually, and it may look around it because it doesn't, maybe it's somehow or other far out on the land and it flaps around, but actually it needs to be back in the water. When it's back in the water, it's fine. But when it's out in the land, it just flaps around. So there's a need, a driving need for the living entities to seek to be satisfied in so many ways when they're disassociated with Krishna. Because they're separated from Krishna. Krishna is the whole, we are the parts. So we need to get back to the whole to be satisfied. When the parts are working with, although actually in one sense, we're never away from the whole. Again, this is an artificial situation. Just that, and the forgetfulness comes from Krishna. And if we have a desire, the remembrance will also come from Krishna. You have a strong enough desire to want to reconnect to Krishna, to all things, and to Krishna, specifically Krishna, then Krishna will give you the remembrance of how to do it. Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santa sadaiva hridayeshu avilokayanti. This is mentioned in Brahma Samhita, that the devotees who develop their love, premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena, within their heart, they have the salve, their eyes anointed with the salve of love. This is one of Lord Brahma's famous prayers. Then when they develop that, when they have, at least in the beginning, they have a desire, then Krishna gives you remembrance. Otherwise, you can never understand the Supreme Personality. Even to understand his energies is an impossibility. Impossibility. So that's a very mind-boggling, to understand how Krishna actually is everything and there's nothing separate from him. We are also Krishna in one sense, because we are separated. So to understand all that, and so when we realize how we got that connection, then everything is fine. But when we're in that forgetfulness, then we always have the need to feel satisfied, looking for newer things. And this, of course, goes over many lives. You have to go many, many lives when you still have this need, because of that disconnection. And then you will always have that need, looking here, looking there, looking all over the place to be satisfied. But as soon as one becomes a devotee, as I said, then it's a different thing. One redevelops that connection and becomes devotee. Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena. I remember one time, I think in Melbourne, one reporter asked Prabhupada, what would happen to the world if everyone became devotees? Remember that. What would happen to the world if everyone became devotees? He was concerned what would happen to the world. And Prabhupada said, oh, that would be a very good thing. That would be a very good thing. Everyone, we'd all go back home, back to Godhead to be with Krishna. But then he looked at him and he said, don't worry, but there'll always be some like you who want to live separately from Krishna. So there will always be a material world. But his initial answer was, oh, that would be a very good thing. No more need of the world. This is an artificial world. We go to the real world of Krishna Loka. So this is what happens. But, because of hanging on, Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha, out of fear of letting go, you're hanging on. You feel comfortable with your situation, and because you don't understand the higher nature of things, even when it's perhaps presented to you, Vita Raga Bhaya, Vita Raga, because of attachment to it, you're very attached over many lifetimes. You're very attached. So then you're very attached to it. That's what you know. You're always looking for different things. That's what you know to do. And so you've done that many lives. So then you become very attached to it. And when someone presents something totally different, then that's very hard to comprehend. And the tendency is to stay attached. Stay attached there, and out of fear you don't let go. But when you develop knowledge, when you develop the knowledge, then the ajnana, the ignorance, is dispelled. So it's a question of developing. And Prabhupada has said many times, and in Bhagavad Gita, one purport says that spiritual life is difficult. One needs a lot of knowledge from books like Bhagavad Gita. So someone who has developed that knowledge, then he can very easily see things in their proper perspective. This is mentioned also in, what is that verse? Yatanto Yoginas Chainam, was it? Yeah. Yatanto Yoginas Chainam. Paschantyatmani Vashtata, Yatanto Pyakritatmana, Nainam Paschantyachitasa. The endeavoring transcendentalist who is situated properly in transcendental realization can see all these things very clearly. But those whose minds are not developed, not situated and practicing to self-realization, they cannot see what is taking place, although they may try to. So one has to be, and I've said this a few times, one has to be situated in the spiritual consciousness, and one has to be a practitioner of the spiritual activities. Then gradually, when one goes along in that way, following under the advisement of those who are very advanced, then Krishna, as I said, Krishna has given you forgetfulness, and Krishna very easily can give you remembrance. So it's a question of, in that sense, spiritual life can become very easy. But if one doesn't go about it in this particular way, then it remains very, very difficult. And one will not be able to see things very clearly, become very muddled. So this is a very, very all-encompassing philosophy. And just the basic principles of it are mentioned here in today's verse. And Prabhupada, as I said, since there's no other existence besides the Lord Himself, there's no other existence besides the Lord Himself. There's no other existence. There's nothing outside Krishna. There's something outside us. There's so many others. There's so many trees and birds, but there's nothing outside Krishna. Krishna is everything. And so the sooner we try to understand that, the better it is for us. And then we can reconnect with that. We can reconnect with that and come to our natural position, water finding its actual level, its own level. You can freeze it, you can heat it, you can do all sorts of things, but it always tries to come back to that liquid platform. And so we come back to our natural position and we make that connection. We plug in. We plug into the actual connection. Well, really, the connection is there. It's just turned off. That's the aponam cha. That's the forgetfulness. And very easily, Krishna can just go on the switch, click. Oh, you want me to turn it on? You could think of it in that way. It's turned off. So we're connected because we can never be disconnected, actually. But Krishna is looking, seeing what you want and seeing what you're doing. And then if he sees a desire, then you want me to turn it on? Click. And then according to how much you want it turned on, sometimes, you've got these on buttons. You can turn it on a little bit. You can turn it on a lot. Or medium, you can turn it on full, and super blasting, right? It's different level. So this is the verse, as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. I reward them accordingly. So Krishna's watching. He's traveling with us at all times. So he's just watching, overseeing and arranging everything, and the switch is off. So as soon as we desire, he can switch it on. And then I saw the light. The switch, put the switch on, and the light bulb comes. And then as soon as that light comes on in the room, and then others may have been there, and you didn't even know about it. It was all dark. Were you all here? I didn't know because it was all dark. And then you start to see everything in the light. But this is what it means, coming to the light. This is the light of Krishna switching on, and the connection becomes turned on. And then remembrance comes. Forgetfulness goes, and remembrance comes. So how everything is. Now, everything is Krishna, but how everything is Krishna, that is the basic principle of Vaishnava philosophy. Everything is Krishna, the same time as Prabhupada quotes as Maya tatamidam sarvam. Everything is not Krishna. It's like, I sweat. So that sweat is produced from me. So in one sense, I'm here and the sweat is also me, but at the same time it's different, isn't it? Sweat, it came from me, but it is different from me at the same time, simultaneously one and different. So Krishna is there in the original form, expands, and then his energies are going. And the Prabhupada gives the example of heat and light. Fire is there, automatically heat and light. So heat and light, you could say, is fire, although they're a little bit different qualities of the fire, but at the same time, they're totally connected to the fire. So when we say Krishna is everything, and we are, in one sense, Krishna too, but how we are actually connected to Krishna, that is the basic principle of Vaishnava philosophy, and that's something we need to learn under the auspices of our Guru and all the Shastra and all the senior Vaishnavas and great Acharyas. Hare Krishna. So I'll read this verse again. If anyone has any questions or comments, Kridayam udyamo basya kamas chikridi sanyata spatas triptasya cha katam nivitasya saranyata. Boys are enthusiastic to play with other boys or with various diversions because they are encouraged by desire. But there is no possibility of such desire for the Lord because he is self-satisfied and detached from everything at all times. Any questions, comments? Yes.
Thank you so much for class. Just about how he can know everything and simultaneously not know everything. Is that because he can't maybe sometimes not know it while it's happening, but in hindsight he can see it?
Who, Krishna?
Yeah.
Is that just run that question?
Is it that he can't know it all while it's happening because it's happening? Like it's currently happening, so
not exactly. No, not exactly, because Krishna knows exactly what's happening. But there's certain aspects where in the vastness of things, Krishna's energy is expanding so much, and his knowledge potency is expanding so much. It's inconceivable to us. It's almost simultaneous, but there is you could say, a moment of not knowing, or just a flash of not knowing, but at the next moment Krishna knows it. But as far as the activities of the living entities, Krishna is there as the super soul in the heart and always with us, and he's seeing everything at all times. So I don't know if I'm answering your question. Some things are. Now the living entity has free will also. So as far as the living entity has a desire or makes a decision, that is up to the Krishna may not know that, because it's up to the living entity to make that decision. But as soon as that living entity makes a decision, Krishna knows it. Is that more or less what you are? I think that's more what you're asking. Is that more? Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. So we didn't have a decision. We didn't have a desire, but then all of a sudden we got a desire. So Krishna didn't know that because we have that free will, and it's always running. It's always running. So Krishna didn't know that, but as soon as it's there, Krishna knows it. And some things, of course, Krishna knows that will happen to you from before. And then you may not even know that, but Krishna knows it. So many things are going to come through from your former lives and then happen to you in this life. And so you may not know about that because you've forgotten about it. But Krishna knows it all. So he knows all those things. But there are certain things in the midst of all that where you're making your own decision just spontaneously, more or less on the spot. You understand? So then Krishna doesn't know that until it happened, then he immediately knows it. Yes. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, it was a very interesting class. Sorry that I did nod off. It wasn't your fault, it was my tiredness.
Probably my fault.
No. You mentioned that it's the knowledge that keeps them on track, but over the years I've seen very many knowledgeable...
Sorry, the knowledge that keeps you on track.
Well, I thought you said the Bhagavad Gita, you said something like the knowledge is what keeps you connected.
Where Prabhupada said the one needs a lot of knowledge from books like Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I would have thought over the years I've seen very knowledgeable devotees, but they still can go off track. Mm-hmm. So I would have thought that to keep connected is to do with association and following the process in association.
Well, part of that knowledge means you will understand all those other things as well. Okay. So when Prabhupada talking about knowledge, a lot of knowledge in Bhagavad Gita, all those things, he said books like Bhagavad Gita. So therefore, if you're developing proper knowledge, you'll understand there are many aspects of spiritual practice that you need to know about and then put into practice. So it's not just book knowledge as such. That's, I think, more of it. And then also it is mentioned Jnana and Vijnana. There's book knowledge and then there's practical application, realization, practical application. So just reading and knowledgeable, and you may know of the verses and this and that and the other. But we're talking about a higher level that when you develop your knowledge properly and fully, then you'll know all the other things that need to be done. And then automatically you'll know you need to associate, you know you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do... There are many aspects of practicing devotional service. So that's the knowledge that Prabhupada is referring to.
Okay, thank you. I have two more if anyone else has.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you one more. We're coming to breakfast.
Well, one I wanted to ask you, you said Krishna's like your best friend and he's always there, but unless you know he's always there. I was wondering if you could personally share with us something about how you know Krishna's always there for you.
Oh. Well, I don't know. I remember a long time ago when I was selling books in the street. I was in Auckland, and I was having a very bad day. I was selling big Bhagavad Gitas, and I hadn't sold many. And actually, I hadn't sold any. Not the big ones. I'd sold some little books, but not the big ones. I said, "How am I going to sell these?" And I'm going to give up. I'm going to go home. And the next minute, someone walked up to me and said, "Hey, are you a Hare Krishna? Have you got one of those Bhagavad Gitas?" I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. I thought, this is... I'm going back to the temple. I thought, I'm going back to the temple. The arti's finished and the prasadam's coming off. What am I doing out here? I'm not selling any book. I'm going to go back for some prasadam. And just as I was packing up everything, someone just walked up out of the blue and said, "Have you got one of those Bhagavad Gitas? I'm looking for the big one." So there's a little story for you. If that's not Krishna, I don't know who it is. Yes.
You say because we have a certain amount of free will, Krishna might not know we're going to make a certain decision. But I seem to recall hearing that Krishna actually knows when we're going to surrender. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I think you've asked that before.
So ultimately, somehow he knows at what point we're finally going to surrender.
Well, I haven't read that myself. I actually haven't read that, but it's an interesting point. Something to be read and gone into with deeper introspection. You've read that?
Well, my understanding, he knows past, present and future.
What?
He knows past, present and future.
Yes, but at the same time, we do have our free will, and there are decisions we're making. It's not that Krishna knows every decision. We're making decisions, and then he knows immediately about that once we make that decision. Otherwise, there'd be no free will. He knows everything, and he knows when we're going to surrender. So it sounds a little odd, but maybe you didn't. It sounds like you read it, and it'll be worth investigating a little bit deeper exactly what context that should be
I
understood.
can't remember whether I read it or just heard it.
Be helpful if you could find it, then we can have a look at it. All right, thank you very much. Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai.